I've had a long-time crush on my online gaming partner, and we finally kissed. My fingers flew across the keyboard, the clicks almost drowned out by the pounding in my chest. The boss let out an earth-shaking roar as its massive claws swiped at Dylan's character. "Watch out!" Dylan shouted, his tone urgent but steady. He was already retaliating. A perfectly timed combo flashed across the screen. "We've got this," he added, his voice like an anchor in the chaos. "Let's end this," I yelled into the mic. "Now!" Dylan commanded, throwing himself into the fight. I unleashed everything. The screen exploded in a blinding cascade of lights, and the boss disintegrated into a pile of molten rubble. "Yes!" Dylan's triumphant laugh rang out as the chat flooded with cheers and fire emojis. "Another one for the books," I said, grinning at Dylan on screen. "Told you, we're the best team." Dylan smirked. I stared at his goofy smile, my heart fluttering. "Don't look at me like that, or people might think we're more than just teammates," Dylan teased with a wink. My breath hitched. "But what?" I stammered, my face burning. Dylan laughed, low and teasing. "Relax, I'm kidding." I set down my mic, my heart pounding. Hiding my crush on Dylan had always been hard, but moments like this made it almost impossible. Flashback. A few months ago, I was deep in another competitive round of Fantasy World, playing as my usual avatar, Shadow Sniper. Finding a suitable teammate to level up with had been a nightmare. I'd already cycled through a bunch of players, none of them interesting or anywhere near my skill level. I sighed. This is why I hated games that forced you to partner up. It was much too easier to play solo. Then I saw him, Mystic King. The name caught my attention, and his profile showed he'd already cleared a ton of levels. Maybe this was the teammate I'd been looking for. "Hey, you up for teaming up?" I typed quickly. "Sure. Already played with a bunch of idiots. You can't be worse," came the reply. I chuckled. Mystic King had an attitude. Promising. It didn't take long for us to start leveling up like crazy. I handled fighting enemies and strategizing, while Mystic King excelled at solving puzzles and sniffing out loot. We were already the perfect team. "So are you a guy or a girl?" I messaged, suddenly curious. "Why? Do you want to date me or something?" "Maybe I'm a guy, by the way," I replied with a grin, hitting send. "Same here. Though, I should warn you, I only date pretty guys." His message popped up, complete with a wink emoji. I stared at the screen, a laugh escaping me. Mystic King just might be the most interesting player I've ever met. 2 weeks later, I quickly grew close to Mystic King, Dylan, as I now knew his real name. Over the next few days, we played every kind of RPG imaginable, and even started chatting on the phone. Sometimes we've dived into action-packed fantasy games that tested our strategizing skills. Other times we'd lazed around in relaxed farm-like simulators. No matter the game, we always ended up having way too much fun. As we spent more time together, we shared more than just strategies and victories. Names, hobbies, phone numbers. Before I knew it, Dylan wasn't just my gaming partner anymore. He was becoming my friend. "Hey Dylan, what's the plan for today?" I texted him. "Just sitting at home, bored out of my mind," he replied. "Ha, same here," I sent back. "Can't believe someone as brainy as you get bored. Shouldn't you be buried in your books?" Dylan teased. "Very funny. I already studied for my exam, so now I've got nothing to do." "Nerd," he shot back instantly. I rolled my eyes, a smile tugging at my lips. "Says the guy who spends half his life solving puzzles in games," I replied. "Touché. At least I'm a cool nerd," Dylan countered, adding a sunglasses emoji. "Wanna hop on a game? Or are you too busy being Mr. Perfect?" I shot back. "How about we switch things up a bit?" Dylan texted. "What do you have in mind?" I replied, curious. "Let's try live streaming a game," he suggested. I rolled my eyes. "Yeah, right. And who's going to watch us?" "We'll build an audience slowly," he replied. Undetermined. I hesitated, feeling the wheels start to turn in my head. It wasn't the worst idea. In fact, it could be fun. "All right," I finally typed back. "Let's give it a shot." Half an hour later, the game was loaded. Cameras and mics ready. All that remained was to hit start. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, nerves creeping in. This wasn't just about gaming anymore. It was about facing an audience and, more importantly, seeing Dylan for the first time. My stomach flipped at the thought. Ready? Dylan's calm voice came through my headset. Yeah, I replied, though my racing heart betrayed me. As soon as the camera turned on, a young man with a goofy grin appeared on my screen. Messy brown hair, a worn-out hoodie, and warm brown eyes. He looked effortlessly perfect. My heartbeat quickened. Hey, Taylor. You're pretty cute, Dylan teased. What? I stammered, heat rushing to my cheeks. He laughed, his voice familiar and easy. Relax, I'm just messing with you. Dylan turned to the camera, all confidence. Hey guys, welcome to the live stream with Mr. King and... He gestured to me. Shadow Sniper. I managed. Still shaky. We're diving into RPGs, epic esport matches, and probably failing miserably at puzzles, Dylan said, shooting me with a playful glance. And if there's failing, it's all on Taylor. Hey, I protested, feeling my cheeks heat up, but I couldn't help laughing. Dylan grinned. See? Already blushing. Stick around. It's gonna be fun. I shook my head, smiling despite my nerves. Maybe this wasn't such a bad idea after all. 1 week later, Dylan and I had gained a modest but loyal group of subscribers. Just 50 felt like a big win. Streaming with him always felt like a blast. His playful jokes and banter never failed to make me laugh or blush. Over time, he'd become one of my closest friends, and I cherished every moment. The live notification popped up as we prepared to stream a dystopia RPG, a genre we're trying for the first time. So, Taylor, are you scared? Dylan teased, his signature smirk in place. No way. I'm ready to make you lose. I shot back, grinning. Hey, we're supposed to be partners, he said, feigning offense. We'll see, I replied, my grin widening. The chat buzzed with excitement. Best duo streaming again? Chaos incoming. They know us too well, I muttered. Dylan laughed. Not chaos. Controlled chaos. Sure, Dylan. Whatever helps you sleep at night. We selected our characters. The game transitioned to a dim alley, lit by a flickering streetlight. A growl echoed in the distance. Stick close, Dylan. No running off, I warned. I never run off, he said, right before his character sprinted ahead. Dylan! Seconds later, his character was down. You're the worst teammate, I groaned. And yet, you keep streaming with me, he replied smugly. Because somebody has to keep you alive, I retorted, unable to hide my smile. As the game reloaded, I sighed. This is gonna be a long night. Dylan grinned, and a fun one. No matter what happened, Dylan was the best partner I could have asked for. And, as I watched him on the screen, my heart fluttered with a feeling I couldn't ignore. He was slowly becoming something more. 2 weeks later, Dylan and I slowly built a solid audience in the past week, making our mark in the gaming world. We knew we'd soon be counted among the top streamers, but as our success grew, so did my feelings for him. I wasn't sure what he felt for me, but he had definitely become my crush, something I had to keep hidden at all costs to avoid losing him. Hey nerd, you up? Dylan texted me one night. Yes, idiot. No one goes to sleep at 10, I replied. I thought a goody two-shoes like you might be, he said. He teased. Before I could respond, Dylan video called me. I accepted, slightly surprised. He's never called me without a reason. Why are you video calling me? I asked after accepting. I was missing that cute face of yours, Dylan. Dylan grinned. Stop messing around, I shot back, though my heart rate had already quickened. Everything Dylan said seemed to affect me twice as much. Fine, Dylan sighed in a mock defeat. I was just bored out of my mind and I missed you. By the way, we hadn't seen each other in a week, he added dramatically. Dylan and I had been offline for a few days due to exams, though Dylan was insistent on live streaming. I, however, firmly refused. Did you call me to waste my time? I mock frowned. No, I just wanted to talk to you, he shrugged casually. About what? I shot back, immediately regretting how hostile I sound. Dylan pouted. I thought we were friends. Can't I just talk to you? My breath hitched. The fact that he wanted to talk to me made me really happy. Sure, I grinned. What are you doing these days? Our conversation flowered easily after that. Slowly I realized that it wasn't just the games keeping us close. Flashback ends. "Did you see how I crushed that game?" Dylan texted me after the stream. "Yeah, right. I was the one who strategized everything and got us the win," I replied. "Maybe, but it's my charm that got us all the views," he shot back. I chuckled. Sometimes I had no retort for him. "You're too much. I don't know how I ended up with a teammate like you," I teased. "Don't lie. I know you're secretly in love with me," he texted. "What?" I quickly hit reply, my heart racing. Did he know? Of course. How could anyone resist me? He continued smugly. "I hate you," I replied, sighing in relief. Oh, poor me," he added, sending a sad emoji. I chuckled and turned my phone off. There was no winning with Dylan, yet somehow, I don't mind losing to him. 1 week later, Dylan and I continued enjoying the live stream, playing all sorts of games for our subscribers. We had become celebrated pro gamers, sometimes even getting recognized in real life. I hated the attention, but Dylan, of course, thrived on it. "So what's your strategy?" Dylan asked me on the video call. We were discussing our plans for the next game we were going to live stream tomorrow. I leaned in the back of my chair, running through the possibilities in my head. "Well, I'm thinking we'll go with an aggressive approach this time," I said. Dylan grinned. "I never thought Shadow Sniper would say this. Didn't you like being in the shadows? I thought a new strategy might get us more views. Plus, doesn't your name have mystic in it?" I retorted. Fine. You're right. We'll go with your plan," Dylan said, giving up. "I win," I said triumphantly. "Only this time," Dylan teased. "By the way, I had something to ask you." His hesitation caught me off guard. I raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "Actually, I'll be in your town next week to meet my aunt. And I was wondering if you would like to meet up," he shrugged. I stared at him in shock. "Meet him? I thought this was never possible. And yet, here we are." "Yes, sure, of course," I replied, fumbling over my words. Dylan chuckled. "No need to get so nervous, Taylor. I promised I'm not a serial killer." "Well, you can never be sure," I tried to joke, but the nerves were still getting the best of me. I was about to meet my first crush in person. After all, not that I could tell him that. "So where would we meet?" Dylan pondered. "Maybe a cafe near your house would be good." I've got a better idea," I hesitated. "How about I pick you up from the cafe, and we go to my house for a sleepover?" "Man, you've got no stranger danger," Dylan teased. "Not for you," I quickly replied, then added, "We're not strangers anymore." "You're right," Dylan grinned. "Let's go with your plan." "See you." And with that, he disconnected. I was left in a whirlwind of emotion, replaying what Dylan said over and over in my head. I was finally meeting him, and I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. And the moment was closer than ever, and I wasn't even sure if I was ready for what would happen next. Another week later, I had been waiting eagerly for this day, the day I'd finally meet Dylan, sitting in the cafe. I fidgeted impatiently, already having downed 2 cups of coffee. Where was he? He was supposed to arrive 20 minutes ago. My fingers fumbled nervously, tapping against the table as I scanned the entrance yet again. Then, suddenly, the door opened, and a young man in his early 20s stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. I froze. It was him! He looked even better in person, his athletic build complementing his casual outfit, and his messy brown hair falling over his eyes in the way that made my heart skip a beat. For a moment, I couldn't take my eyes off him. This was real. Dylan was here. "Taylor!" he called out, striding towards me with a grin that could lift up the whole room. I gulped nervously, my brain scrambling to come up with something, anything to say. "Hey there. Did you not see me?" Dylan waved a hand in front of my face, his brows quirking in a mock confusion. But I just stared, frozen and speechless, like an idiot. "Hey, cat got your tongue? Or are you just too damn happy to see me?" he teased, his voice laced with a playful amusement. "So sorry." I finally managed to stammer. "You know, you look adorable when you get so nervous," Dylan said, his grin widening. My cheeks burned and I quickly stumbled down to reply. "It's just different seeing you in person." "I know. I seem more handsome, right?" he said smugly, leaning back in his chair with an air of mock confidence. I groaned inward, feeling my face heat up even more. Why did he always have to do this? You're impossible, I muttered, avoiding his gaze as I fiddled with the edge of my napkin. As I saw his eyes sparkle with mischief, I realized meeting Dylan in person might be even more overwhelming than I had imagined. So, did you order something? Dylan asked, pointing at the 2 empty cups in front of me. I had to. You were late, I said, pouting just a little. Dylan raised his hand in a mocking surrender. I'm sorry about that. I was visiting my aunt after a long time, and it was hard to get away. Oh, it's all right, I replied quickly, not wanting to ruin our first meeting by sulking. Dylan leaned forward with a playful smirk. So, is the sleepover still on? Of course. I've already prepared everything, I said, maybe a little too eagerly. Such a nerd, he teased, laughing. I stared at his radiant smile, feeling my heart flutter uncontrollably. The idea of spending the night with him felt exciting and terrifying. Still, as I met his warm gaze, I couldn't help but think this was going to be a night to remember. A few hours later, Dylan was sitting on my bed, his gaze wandering around my room, as if he was taking in every detail. I already had prepared 2 bowls of popcorn and set up a movie for us to watch. Wow, your room is nerdy, he exclaimed, a teasing grin spreading across his face. It's not that bad, I pouted, crossing my arms in a mock offense. I never said it was bad, he replied, shrugging. It's just very you. What did he mean by that? I was about to ask when Dylan suddenly leapt off the bed and grabbed a book from my shelf. You're into fantasy novels too, he exclaimed, holding up one of my favorite books, like he'd found buried treasure. Who's the nerd now? I taunted, smirking. Come on, this is cool nerd stuff, he retorted, grinning as he flipped through the pages. You sure love to praise yourself, I said, rolling my eyes. Now, shall I put the movie on? It's horror, so I hope you don't get too scared, I added mockingly. Seems like the student has become the master, Dylan replied smugly, puffing out his chest. Bring it on. I hit play and slid back into my bed, wrapping myself around in a blanket with a bowl of popcorn. Dylan said the same, sitting close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. My heart flooded, and it took all my wind power not to look at him. Focus on the movie, Taylor. Focus on the movie. But with Dylan's shoulder brushing against mine every now and then. It was easier said than done. Half an hour later, it's not scary at all, Dylan said while leaning back with a slight yawn. Yeah, horror movies don't really get me anymore, I replied, nodding in agreement. Same here, he said, shoving another handful of popcorn in his mouth. After a few minutes of silence, he sighed dramatically. This is so boring. I wish I could just play some games. I chuckled, shaking my head. Isn't that literally what we do almost every day? Exactly, and it's the best part of my day. What about you, he asked, turning to me with a curious grin. I wanted to agree with him, but not wanting to reveal too much about my feelings, I said casually. I enjoy college too. Well, what in college, he asked, tilting his head in curiosity. My classes are fun and interesting, I replied with a shrug, trying to keep it vague. Dylan sighed dramatically. I knew you would say something like that. What are you expecting me to say, I asked, raising an eyebrow. I want to hear about your friends, your dating life, not the boring stuff, he teased, grinning mischievously. What? Why? I stammered, feeling my face heat up. Because it's interesting, he said with a sly smile. Anyway, my life's pretty uneventful, so I figured yours must be more entertaining. You're impossible, I exclaimed, but I could feel the nervousness creeping into my voice. Wait, don't tell me you're actually dating someone. Who is it? Dylan asked, suddenly eager, leaning forward with a mischievous glint in his eye. No one, I stammered. But the blush spread across my cheeks betrayed me. Come on, tell me who it is. Dylan pressed, his voice teasing but insistent. He was so close that I could feel the warmth on his breath on my skin, and our lips were almost brushing against each other. Before I realized what I was doing, I pressed my lips to Dylan's. To my surprise, he kissed back, pulling me closer, My heart raced as I instinctively deepened the kiss, feeling his warmth and familiarity of him. Every part of me seemed to align with the movement like it was meant to be, and the world outside faded away. Next morning, I woke up groggily to the sound of Dylan's voice calling me. "Hey, it's late. You wanna wake up?" he said in a cheerful voice, rubbing my eyes, and he's trying to piece everything together. The fog of the sleep made it hard to focus, but then, like a jolt of electricity, the realization hit me. Dylan had kissed me last night. Everything felt different now. I didn't know how to process it. "Give me a minute to freshen up," I said quickly, my words coming out in a rush. Without waiting for a response, I practically ran out of the room. I needed space, time to clear my mind, time to figure out what all this meant before I faced him again. A little while later, I walked to the kitchen, feeling more confident and ready to face him. "Hey, Dylan," I said with a smile, hoping I didn't seem too awkward. "Good morning, sleepyhead," he replied, handing me a steaming mug of coffee. "Here's your coffee." I took the mug gratefully, inhaling the delicious aroma. "Thanks. I expect this every morning now," I joked, trying to keep things light. "Sorry, sir, my services are only available for today," he grinned, his playful tone making me laugh. "What? Why?" I asked in shock. "I'm going back to my aunt's place," he shrugged casually, though there was a hint of something else in his eye that I couldn't quite place. But what about last night?" I stammered, the words slipping out of my mouth before I could stop myself. Dylan, however, seemed unfazed. Yeah, I know I stayed last night, but I can't stay every day," he replied, completely sidestepping my question. "But, Dylan, what about—" I tried again, wanting an answer, but he cut me off. Can we talk later, Taylor? I've got a rush," he said, his tone suddenly more chipped, as if he was in a hurry to escape the conversation. "Wait, you're not staying even a little while?" I asked, a pang of disappointment cutting through me. "Sorry, I've got to go, but we'll meet again soon," giving me a quick smile before I walked out the door. I stood there, watching him leave, the weight of confusion settling over me. My mind was a whirlwind of questions. More importantly, why didn't he want to talk about last night? And why the hell was he avoiding me now? 2 days later, I tried calling Dylan 100 times since that morning, but each time he'd either ignore my calls or gave me that curt reply with everything unanswered ring. I felt the weight pressing down on me, my chest. The more I thought about it, the more I started to wonder if that kiss had just been a spur-of-the-moment thing for him. Maybe it didn't mean anything at all. As painful as the truth was, I had to face it. Dylan's distance, his silence, it all pointed to one thing. He didn't feel the same way, and though the truth stung like 1,000 needles, I knew I couldn't change it. Despite everything, I couldn't stop wanting to talk to him, to confess my feelings, even if it was for the last time. What if he left town? He mentioned he was only here for a few days. Maybe, after all this, I'd never get to see him again. I had to make one last attempt. I dialed his number, my fingers trembling, and I waited as the phone rang endlessly before he finally answered. "Hey Taylor, sorry I've been busy, and I couldn't take your calls," he said casually like it didn't matter. "Never mind," I replied, brushing it aside. "Can we please meet?" I asked earnestly, hoping he'd agreed. "Maybe. I'm not too sure," he answered hesitantly, and my heart sank. "Please, Dylan, one last time," I almost begged, my voice barely above a whisper. "Fine, buddy. I'll come to your house," he replied with a hint of reluctance. "I'll be waiting for you," I said, relief flooding through me as I disconnected the call. Now all I had to do was wait, but it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Every second felt like an eternity, the weight of the anticipation making me anxious. A few hours later, as I sat down waiting for Dylan, my mind raced, filled with a mixture of hope and fear. What would he say when he got here? What happened after I confessed? I couldn't help but wonder, would I lose our friendship, the one thing I cherished so much? Or would Dylan confess back? The thought of losing him, even as a friend, was unbearable, but I couldn't keep pretending that my feelings for him were just casual. Not anymore. The weight of my unspoken emotion had grown too heavy to bear, and I had to know, even if it meant risking everything. When I heard the doorbell ring, I jumped up, almost knocking over my chair. My breath hitched as I rushed over to answer the door. trying to steady my nerves. There he was, standing in front of me, looking the same as he did last night. His presence felt both familiar and distant. I couldn't tell if he'd changed since the last time we were together, or if I was just too nervous to see clearly. "Hey," he said, a slight smile tugging at his lip, but there was something in his eye that I couldn't quite read. "Hey," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper, as I stepped aside to let him in. The silence between us hung heavy as I closed the door behind him. "So, what did you want to talk about?" he asked hesitantly. Did you have dinner?" "Let's have dinner first," I blurted out nervously, not ready to suddenly confess my feelings to him. "Sure, I don't mind," he replied nonchalantly. His usual goofy grin and sparkling eyes had vanished. A little while later, we were both silently preparing dinner, with not a single word exchanged between us. I sighed. When did things become so awkward between us? I wish I could turn back time and return everything to how it was before, when Dylan would tease me relentlessly, and I would blush and try not to retort. Yet, here we are, acting like two strangers who had nothing to do with each other. "Dylan?" I suddenly hesitated. "I'm sorry for last night. For everything. Please don't say that." I could hear his voice breaking. "I mean it. I ruined everything between us. And now, I let my words hang in the air, my throat tight. Please, you didn't." He stammered, backing away. "I'll be back in a minute." I stared at him as he ran out the kitchen and out the front door. I felt like I was going to collapse to the ground. I had not only ruined our friendship, but had turned Dylan into a man I didn't recognize anymore. 10 minutes later, I waited anxiously, every second dragging on like an eternity. What if Dylan didn't come back? I thought of losing my closest friend, my confidant, and the best gaming partner I'd ever had was suffocating. A ping broke the silence. I glanced at the table. Dylan's phone. Did he leave it by mistake? Surely, he'd return for it. A flicker of hope sparked within me. I picked it up, intending to hand it to him, but a message flashed up on the screen. "Hey bro, did you get him to kiss you or what? I'm sure it'll get you 1,000,000 views. Hurry up." The words froze me. My mind raced, piecing everything together. Why had Dylan kissed me that night? Why he'd been avoiding me since? The realization hit me like a punch in the gut. Tears welled up as anger and sadness coiled. I had been so naive, believing there was something real between us. My knees gave out, and I sank to the floor under the weight of betrayal. "Taylor?" Dylan's voice startled me as he walked in. I looked up, my face wet with tears. "Don't touch me!" I yelled, shoving him away when he tried to reach for me. "You're a liar!" "What? What are you talking about?" he asked, looking genuinely confused. I held up his phone. Everything was for views, wasn't it? Our friendship, my feelings, me. "Did you even know I liked you?" My voice broke as I sobbed. "Taylor, it's not like that," he stammered, panic flashing across his face. Just leave. You don't deserve to be friends with anyone," I said, throwing his phone at him. Please, just let me explain," he begged. "Leave," I shouted, turning away. He hesitated, regret etched into his face, before walking out the door. As it closed behind him, the loneliness engulfed me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. 2 days later, Dylan had called me countless times since that day, but I ignored every call. I couldn't bring myself to block him, though, because that part of me still cared. What he did was worse than betrayal. He used me for his own gain. I didn't want to believe our friendship was a lie, but deep down I knew it was. My phone rang again. It had to be Dylan. I decided to pick it up this time. "Why do you keep calling me?" I snapped. I'm sorry, Taylor. Please, just listen," he pleaded. "What is there left to say? Haven't you already done enough?" I shot back. "I just want to explain. I won't bother you after that." He tried again. "Really? Then tell me what I read was false. That it was a lie," I demanded. "No, it was true, but—" "Stop. I don't want to hear anything else," I interrupted. "Taylor, please." I hung up before he could say another word. There was no way I was going to give him another chance, no matter what he said. Next day, I had promised myself I'd forget everything about Dylan. Yet, here I was, sitting at my PC, scrolling through our channel, reminiscing all the games we'd played and the fun we'd had. I shook my head hard. What was I doing? I couldn't stay stuck in the past. Still, maybe just for the last time, I could indulge in those memories. I opened Fantasy World, our favorite game, the place where we first met. I searched for a partner. A message popped up from Mr. King. Dylan, please, hear me out. I hesitated before accepting his request. What do you have to say? I asked as our mics connected. Can we talk on video? He asked softly. No, I don't want to see your face ever again. Say what you have to here, I replied coldly. Fine, let me tell you the truth then. The complete truth, he said, his voice breaking. Yes, it was true. I wanted to record us kissing for a day and views, and that I even recorded it that night. What? You're disgusting! I interrupted, my anger flaring before he could continue. I'm sorry, but let me finish, he pleaded. I never knew you had feelings for me. I guess you could call me an idiot, he added with a sad chuckle. That doesn't change anything, I shot back. I know, but I need you to understand something, he continued. I loved spending time with you. I considered you my friend. All of that was real, but I let my ambition get the better of me. I thought it would matter, that I could tell you the truth later. But I couldn't. He paused, his voice trembling. Couldn't what? I pressed, anger and confusion swirling inside me. I couldn't post the video. I didn't upload it or share it to anyone. I even deleted it, he said then, almost in a whisper. He added, because when you kissed me, I realized I had been in love with you too. What? I froze, my heart pounding with another lie. Was this another lie? Another attempt to manipulate me? It's true, he said, his voice soft but steady. I know it's hard to forgive me, and I don't expect you to, but not everything was a lie. You meant so much to me. You still do. I'm leaving in 3 days. You'll never see me again. That's all I wanted to say. And with that, he logged off, leaving me staring at an empty screen. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Dylan loved me. How was that even possible? And after everything he had done, how could I possibly believe him? 3 days later, I parked my car and sprinted towards Dylan's aunt's house, my heart racing as fast as my feet. There was no way I was going to lose him. The past 3 days had been a roller coaster of emotions, but they had made one thing crystal clear. I couldn't let him go. I now understood that our friendship wasn't a lie. What Dylan had done was almost unforgivable. But hadn't I made mistakes too? Didn't everyone deserve a second chance? Most importantly, I wasn't about to let the love of my life slip away without fighting for us. With a renewed determination, I pounded on his door, ready to say everything I should have said long ago. Yes? An older woman, likely in her mid-40s, opened the door. She had a kind face and must have been Dylan's aunt. Is Dylan here? I asked anxiously, trying to steady my breath. Oh, he's by the garage, loading his luggage into the car. He's leaving shortly, she said with a soft smile, my heart pounding as I darted towards the garage. Please let him still be there. I can't lose him now. Dylan! I called out, spotting him, just as he was about to get into the car. Relief and panic coiled inside me. I had almost missed him. Taylor? He turned, his eyes wide with surprise. What are you doing here? I came for you, Dylan, I said, gasping for air, my voice trembling from all the running, and the emotion threatening to overflow. But why? I thought you hated me, he said, frowning, his voice tingled with uncertainty. No, you idiot. I could never hate you. I love you, and I forgive you. I forgive everything you've done, I said softly, meeting his gaze, because I know that even though what you did to me was wrong, our friendship was real, And so were our feelings. I leaned my forehead against his, feeling the tension between us begin to melt away. "Really?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Do I even deserve your forgiveness?" "Yes," I replied with a small smile. "But you'll have to earn it." "I'll do anything," he said seriously, his expression full of determination. Then, with a mischievous grin, he added, "After all, I'm very charming." I chuckled, a sound I hadn't made in what felt like forever. Finally, I could see the Dylan I had missed, the Dylan I loved. I pulled him closer, my heart racing. "Want to give that kiss another try?" I asked, smirking as I added. "And no cameras this time." "Of course," he said, his voice softening. "Just you and me." Dylan leaned in, his lips meeting mine, in a kiss that started tenderly but quickly deepened. His hands brushed against my back, pulling me closer while I tangled my fingers in his hair, holding him as if letting go wasn't an option. In that moment, everything felt right, like the pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place, just as they always had in our games. This time, though, it wasn't virtual, it was real, and it was us. Conclusion: Dylan and I continued our journey as pro gamers, becoming celebrities in the gaming world, but we also learned to draw a clear line between virtual world and reality. Grateful as we were for our fans, we stopped accepting personal requests, like the one Dylan had fallen for, and we reported such individuals when necessary. It didn't matter if our subscriber count dipped, because we realized genuine people and meaningful connections mattered far more than mere numbers. After college, Dylan and I moved in together. I graduated with excellent grades, while Dylan managed to scrape by, just barely. But most days we spent streaming and playing games side by side. But we made it a point to step out of the digital realm. We dedicated days to the real world, going on dates, visiting family and friends, and my personal favorite, sharing countless kisses. What had started as a silly crush had grown into something important, things in life. And as I looked at Dylan, sitting beside me with his signature grin while immersed in a game, I couldn't help but feel like the luckiest person alive. The end. Question: do you have a virtual game partner like Dylan? Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force. And stay wholesome.